What's going on, everybody? Simple back at it like I'm checking my height. Today we're checking out why Canadians can't bike in the winter, but Finnish people can. And I'm actually really interested in this because about 6 hours north of me is Canada. We have a lot of winters here in New Hampshire that get pretty harsh. And I know from experience that biking can definitely get pretty difficult. So, if you guys enjoy this, definitely make sure you guys head on over to Not Just Bikes channel and show them some support over there as well. If you want to get your requests up here, as always, check out the Google form down in the description and make sure you guys hit up the Creator Consortium. That is where we are filming reactions live all the time. Let's go.
Here in the Netherlands, our family routinely takes advantage of the network of safe cycling paths found almost everywhere. These are so safe that even our young children can cycle themselves to school, activities, and friends' houses, and they have become an important part of the high quality of life we experience here. Unfortunately, all of this is completely impossible back in Canada because there, we have winter. And of course, you can't cycle in the winter, or so I'm told, repeatedly, by people who have never tried it.
Yes. It's slightly difficult.
This is the city of Oulu in Finland. It is considered the winter cycling capital of the world. This is a city where 22% of all trips are taken by bicycle, and where 77% of the population says they cycle at least occasionally. And yet, despite their harsh winters, over half of these people cycle all year round. And it's not just the young and the strong who cycle in the winter here. You'll see even very elderly people cycling in minus 20-degree weather. This is what the bicycle parking lot of a typical elementary school in Oulu looks like in January, because 52% of all trips to school and university are taken by bicycle.
That is so crazy.
Somehow, even little Finnish kids can cycle all year round, so this does lead to the obvious question. Why are Canadians such giant wimps?
America's been asking ourselves that for a long time. Shout out to my Canadians.
But maybe it's not quite that simple. This is the city of Tampere, also in Finland. Despite the fact that Finnish people call this a swimming pool, far fewer people cycle in Tampere compared to Oulu.
Hold on a second. I'm sorry.
The city of Tampere, also in Finland. Despite the fact that Finnish people call this a swimming pool.
My friends, I know it's winter for a long time, but that is not a swimming pool. That is freezing cold. Literally. That's rough, man. I don't think I've ever done a polar plunge. I'd be afraid my heart would stop, honestly. I don't think I have enough meat in my bones for that.
Far fewer people cycle in Tampere compared to Oulu. So why is this?
That's when it's hard. All of this slushy, like, broken up stuff, especially when it refreezes and you're just like riding through all the ruts. It definitely sucks. But it's doable.
Fortunately, we don't have to guess, because researchers have studied and written papers about winter cycling, and the results are very clear. In cities with cold winters, there is almost no correlation between winter temperatures and the amount of winter cycling. Let that sink in. The temperature and weather conditions do not significantly affect the level of winter cycling in a city. It is a complete myth that people do not cycle in the winter because of the cold. So what does the research tell us? Well, there need to be two things in place to get people to cycle like they do in Oulu. First, is there a network of safe bicycle paths?
No.
Is it possible to get to where you want to go without having to share the road or regularly cross paths with high-speed motor traffic?
No. But why is there a dude canoeing through the ice? I just noticed that.
First, is there a network of
Look at
safe
this guy
bicycle
down
paths?
here. How are you even breaking through that, first of all? Because you can see all the stuff that's just floating at you.
Is it possible to get to where you want to go without having to share the road or regularly cross
completely
paths with
distracted
high-speed
on
motor
that.
traffic? This is something that Oulu does exceptionally well. Oulu has 875 kilometers of separated bicycle paths that connect every part of the city.
And
That's
they take
over
care of
4
them
meters
really
of
well.
bicycle path for every resident.
See, that's the difference. Look how well this path is taken care of. Even out here in New Hampshire, they do the sidewalks last because people aren't really expected to be walking around when it's like that out. Maybe it's because we have More traffic? I don't know. It's just more dangerous. I don't think that seems like a viable answer to it, though. I think people are just lazy, honestly. I enjoy biking in the wintertime. It's a little bit easier to breathe.
In fact, Oulu has only about 600 meters of painted bicycle lanes in the entire city, which makes perfect sense because when it snows, you can't see white paint. But you can see images cleverly projected on the snow from above. Nicely.
Now, that is super cool. I love that. We have streetlights up anyway. Why not just have the streetlight projecting images?
Done, Oulu.
That is so cool.
And this is not some kind of super compact medieval European city either. Oulu has plenty of car-centric sprawl and many people live in single-family homes. In fact, it has almost exactly the same urban population density as my hometown of London, Ontario in Canada. Like, this is creepy how close these numbers are. And why is it that every city has the ugliest flags, except for Amsterdam? Anyway, there is literally zero reason why a typical mid-sized Canadian city couldn't be like Oulu if it was designed properly. Oulu just takes the effort to connect every resident to the places they want to go with safe paths for walking and cycling. And even better, many of these bicycle paths are designed to be shortcuts that are faster than driving.
And a big part of it, too, our bike paths, we have started painting bike paths on the sides of the roads. And you're no longer allowed to ride your bike on the sidewalks in the areas that I live in, right? So it forces you out into the street. But what do you do when there is no bike path and you're still not allowed to ride your bicycle on the sidewalk? Now you have to ride in traffic, right? There is no other option. So it makes it a lot more dangerous because people here aren't paying attention to people on bicycles. I'll say it that way. There's people hit in my hometown at least twice a year, and it's pedestrians on bicycles. You know, it's a really sad thing that people just don't pay attention enough. What else is really sad, though, is that they don't utilize some of the land, and they build houses so close to the road that there's really no option or no other places to. Maybe it's just the design, the urban design.
Encouraging people to cycle even more, just as it's done in the Netherlands. And if that wasn't enough, Oulu also has over 300 underpasses that pedestrians and cyclists can use to avoid major roads. These make it possible to cycle entire journeys without ever encountering a traffic light or even needing to stop. This should not be a surprise to anyone. A network of safe bicycle lanes is the single biggest predictor for the level of cycling in any city in the world. It's significantly more important than any other metric, including culture, distance, hills, and in this case, weather. After a safe bicycle network, the next most important element is snow removal. Is the bicycle network properly maintained in the winter? And this is the real key to Oulu's success, as there are very, very, very few cities that do this well. Toronto, as an example, is a city with fairly mild winters, compared to Finland and most of Canada for that matter. Yet very, very few people cycle there in the winter. When you look at videos of winter cycling in Toronto, is there any surprise? Most of Toronto's bicycle paths are painted bicycle gutters. These become dumping grounds for snow. They're routinely driven over by drivers, leaving tread marks.
That's exactly what our bike paths look like. Look how close you have to ride. Like, you have an elbow over that line the whole time. And if somebody's watching their cell phone and driving, and they just happen, you know what I mean? That's all it takes, and that's what happens all the time, unfortunately. There's so much space in between. The only downside is we have these giant light posts everywhere in between the lanes, so it's not even like you could ride up the middle of a lane. It's always split, and one side of it you can't ride on. I mean, look how small the sidewalks are. It's insanity.
Marks that melt and refreeze into impassable paths of jagged ice, forcing cyclists to share the road with cars.
Yep.
Even the proper separated bicycle paths often get snow dumped in them by snowplows.
Yep.
And only a fraction of the already minuscule bicycle network is maintained in the winter. The city says they don't even...
That one looked like it was on like a what do they call it? A byway or a passway or whatever? Parkway? Probably a parkway. I feel like that looks similar to the one in Connecticut, but I would never ride a bicycle down that. Holy crap, people do like 90 down there, and it is a one-lane road just like that. But Urban design here kind of sucks, I guess.
The already minuscule bicycle
It just
network
is what it
maintained
is.
in the winter. The
But I mean,
city
I'm
says
in
they don't
America,
even
so...
start plowing unless there's more than 5 centimeters of snow.
Oh.
This is the reason why few people cycle through the winter in Toronto or any other Canadian city.
And that's
not
the
weather.
reason why you can't ride on the sidewalks.
In
'cause
Oulu,
it's
the
meant for
priority
people
bicycle
walking.
routes are all plowed within 3 hours of a 2-centimeter snowfall, and they will be plowed multiple times per day if necessary. Snow removal
awesome.
contractors guarantee that the depth of the snow will never exceed 4 centimeters, and they maintain the paths with hard-packed snow that is free of ice and debris, making it easy to cycle on. To put it simply, the bicycle paths in Oulu are considered important pieces of infrastructure that get people from point A to point B. So they don't want cyclists to start competing for space on public transit, or worse, to drive cars, just because it snowed. They make it a priority.
Yeah, they use fewer vehicles to maintain bike paths so that people can actually use them. Like, it's incredibly smart.
Oulu proves that cold is not the issue. Snow is not the issue. Winter is
What's
a
that
lazy excuse
drag
used by
behind? That
ignorant
thing is
people
so
to make
cool.
the discussion of safe road infrastructure go away. The snow might explain why only 22% of trips in your city are taken by bicycle instead of, say, 42%. But when less than 2% of your population rides a bike, it's not because of the weather. It's because people don't feel safe cycling.
Because it's deadly.
Period. The truth is, cycling in cold weather is really not bad at all. Toronto routinely gets cold days, but without much snow, where the roads are perfectly clear. So after getting sick of waiting on transit vehicles that were constantly stuck in traffic because Canadian public transit is stupid and counterproductive,
A little bit of a
I
moment
decided
there.
to try cycling to work in the winter, and it was fine. There's nothing hardcore or extreme about cycling in winter. I did it, and I assure you I am not a particularly tough person. Just ask my brother.
You mean my brother? He's a total wimp.
At first, I had some problems with ice, but then I discovered studded winter tires.
Seems believable.
These things are like magic on ice. I never slipped once when using them.
Yeah.
It's interesting to note, though, that most people do not use studded tires in Oulu, because when you plow your bicycle paths properly, they're not slippery at all. And the same goes for sidewalks. Seriously, winter maintenance of the sidewalks and bicycle paths in Oulu is incredible. This is complicated and expensive, but it's still a fraction of the cost of maintaining wide roads and highways for cars. Oulu shows what is possible if your city isn't bankrupt from maintaining too much car infrastructure. Oulu tracks data on cyclists very well with automated bicycle detectors like these. What's interesting is that the number of people cycling in winter stays pretty consistent until the temperature goes below about minus 20 degrees, and even then, it only drops by 15%. This may surprise you, but one thing I consistently hear from people who try winter cycling is that they're a lot warmer than they thought they'd be. I thought cycling in the winter would be frigidly cold, but you warm up surprisingly quickly. And cycling in the snow is actually quite pleasant. Drivers typically drive much slower, the noise pollution of the city is muffled, and it's easy to maintain a comfortable temperature in all but the coldest weather conditions.
Yeah,
I
for sure.
definitely prefer it, by far, to cycling in the rain.
Yes.
Some people like to talk about
Absolutely.
the gear you need for winter cycling, so I'll share what I would typically wear when cycling in the winter. First, I recommend a jacket. This is like a big warm shirt that you wear over your clothes. Next, you'll need gloves. These are kind of like shoes, but for your hands, which is why both the Dutch and the Germans call them hand shoes. I'd also
Okay.
recommend one of these woolen head coverings.
And shoes,
People
huh?
call these by many different names, but they're all wrong. It's called a toque. Now that you've got your specialized gear, you're ready to go cycling in the winter.
I can tell you that I did not know that. A toque. Okay.
Sure. Now, when the temperatures get really cold, like below minus 20 degrees, you'll want to wear more layers and a scarf. But it's exactly the same kind of clothing that Canadians routinely wear when skiing, snowmobiling, or doing any other kind of winter activity. You can even get pogies for your bike to keep your hands warm. Exactly the same kind of clothing that Canadians routinely wear when skiing, snowmobiling, or doing any other kind of winter activity. You can even get pogies for your bike to keep your hands warm, just like they do for snowmobiles.
Oh, that's
These
cool.
are great. Thankfully,
That is
several
super
frigid Canadian
cool.
cities have stopped giving cyclists the cold shoulder and are warming up to the idea of winter cycling, though progress is still glacial.
Yes.
Insert joke about snow.
Yes.
Edmonton, Alberta recently built a network of protected bicycle lanes downtown, and now plows the protected bicycle network with the same priority as major roads. When I was in Yellowknife, which is here, I was impressed by the quality of the new bicycle infrastructure they were installing. And Montreal saw an 83% increase in winter cycling in 2020 over the previous year's average, likely due in part to the addition of more separated bicycle lanes. They've also started to use not just snowplows, but ice crushing machines like this one to clear the bicycle paths.
Ooh.
And I really enjoy the dramatic
That's
music
cool.
in the manufacturer's marketing video.
That is so sick.
But while this is good progress, all of this pales in comparison to Oulu. Edmonton only plows a small 8-kilometer bike network downtown, and only within 24 hours. Most of Yellowknife's bike network is still painted bicycle gutters, and Montreal puts away their bike share bikes for the winter. Unfortunately, winter is still used as the number one excuse for inaction in Canadian cities, even in cities that get very little snow in the winter. Meanwhile, Oulu gets more snow than almost any major city in Canada. Canadians also love to exaggerate about the cold, but most Canadian cities only get a handful of really truly cold days per year, just like Finland. But when your only exposure to winter is the walk across the parking lot to your car, you never get used to the weather, and you get an exaggerated sense of how cold it gets.
Yep. Because it is a known fact that if you are cold, like say it's cold outside, right? And there's a nice blazing fire, and you go stand next to that fire and warm yourself up. When you walk away and it's still the same temperature, that means you're feeling that temperature difference. You see what I'm saying? So when you're like 80, 90 degrees and you walk away and it's 0, that's a 90-degree difference that you are feeling. And that's why people think that it's so much colder than it actually is. It's not. It's just facts. It's just facts. It's that you could do the same thing. If it's really hot outside and you go inside and it's air conditioned and it's like, 60 degrees, 57 degrees inside, and you walk back outside and it's 100 degrees, it's going to feel blazing hot because your body isn't used,
Ultimately, like everything else with cycling, it just comes down to safety and convenience.
I had to use
and
my
cold
bald spot
weather
for that one.
doesn't significantly change that. A great place to learn more is the Winter Cycling Congress that happens every February. This event brings together advocates and professionals with a goal of making year-round cycling a normal and practical activity, a viable transportation option for people of all ages and abilities, regardless of winter weather conditions. This year, the Congress is being held online on February
that man's
11th,
beard.
so it's easier than ever to attend.
Let's go.
More information on that is in the comments and at wintercycling.org. But whether you attend the Winter Cycling Congress or not, we need more people to learn the truth about winter cycling. It's not the cold. It's not the snow. It's a proven fact that people of all ages will ride a bicycle in the winter, but only if the city is designed for it. And more places should be designed this way so that cities can be as healthy, productive, convenient, and sustainable as Oulu.
In the town I grew up in, I wouldn't even ride a bike half the time in the summertime. I'd rather just walk because it's easier to walk. There's actual paths meant for walking everywhere. But most of them you are not allowed to ride a bicycle on. So it makes it extremely difficult to get to where you want to go that is a distance without a vehicle here. It really sucks. And like I said, I'm in New Hampshire, so I'm like 6 hours from the border. It sucks.
I'd like to thank my supporters on Patreon who pay me to call out wimpy snowflake Canadians who can't handle a little bit of cold. If you'd like to support
I'd like to thank you as well.
Oulu. I'd like to thank my supporters on Patreon who pay me to call out wimpy snowflake Canadians who can't handle a little bit of cold.
That's awesome.
If you'd like to support the channel and get access to bonus videos, visit patreon.com/notjustbikes.
Big ol' intro. Or outro. See, I didn't use my bald spot for that one. A little bit of B-roll footage of him riding. That's pretty cool. I'm going to check this out. Let me know what you guys thought about this one down in the comments below. Let me know where to go from here. If you guys did enjoy it, make sure you head on over to his channel and show him some support over there. As always, make sure you check out the Creator Consortium. Google Forms down in the description as well. Hit up one of the other videos before you take off, and I'll catch you on the next one.